This is exercise 1 for DigiElex2 Lec. Um, so here we have RA1 as the output for the LED. System module is set to 1 MHz for the clock. And interrupt module, we did not change anything. So here in timer 0, here we have timer 0 set to 1 second for the period. And this will be explained later in main.c. So here in main.c, we have variable I initialized as 0, and then this LED toggle is just a way to test the circuit if it is correct. So it just turns on the LED, and then it keeps the LED on. So here in the while statement, the code inside this loops indefinitely. Here we have the if function which waits for timer 0 to overflow. So since we set it to 1 second, this code will run every 1 second. I++ means that I is increased by a value of 1 for each iteration. So what we created here is basically a timer that increases I every 1 second. And using that variable I, we wait for it to reach a value of 180. So that means that after 180 seconds, the code inside the if function will run. So the LED is toggled, and then I is set to 0 again to reset the timer. So for the next iteration, it waits another 180 seconds, or it waits for timer 0 to reach. It waits for timer 0 to overflow, and then I is increased again by 1, and then it waits for I to reach 180, and then LED is toggled again, and then it continues that cycle. Here, this code means that the overflow status of timer 0 is reset. The LED is attached to RA1, and it should blink at 3-minute intervals. Code was added to turn on the LED initially so that the circuit can be tested before waiting for 3 minutes. So this is part of the experiment. Here we have RA0 as the output pin. The system module is still set to 1 MHz as the external clock. And the interrupt module, we did not change anything other than what's automatically changed by timer 0. So here in timer 0, we have the period set to 1 second. And since the experiment asks for 2 minutes, we created code in timer 0 that waits for 120 that waits for the timer to overflow 120 times. So here we have timer interrupt enabled. Here in main.c, we have the LED toggle first, so the circuit can be tested if it is properly working. Here in timer 0, we put the code under timer 0 ISR. So here's the code that waits for 120 overflows of timer 0. Here we have the the here we have the code that initializes variable I and sets it to 0. And that variable I is what we are um, increasing for every time that the timer 0 overflows. And once I reaches 120, the LED toggles and I is set to 0 again. So this code I plus plus increases I by a value of 1. So every time an interrupt occurs, I is increased by 1. And this part of the code checks if I is equal to 120, which then toggles the LED and then sets I to 0. This is the second part of experiment 1. The LED is attached to RA0 and it should blink at 2-minute intervals. Just like before, I added code that made the initial state of the LED as on so that the circuit can be tested.